Great. Well, thank you very much for asking me to talk. I know this is just a short introduction, and I think just maybe for everyone else's benefit, I'm not here to tell you how to design software, because that's what you guys do. You're the experts at that. And what maybe we're experts at is maybe designing businesses and brands. So if you just want to click one on, please, Holly. Thank you. So yeah, a bit of an admission. My name is Darren. I am a designer. Please don't judge me on that. Like I said, I'm not here to tell you how to design software, but I think what we need to do is maybe show you our approach and explain through the journey that we've gone through with Pan Intelligence over the last 2 or 3 months. So next slide, please, Holly. Thank you. My business is called The Engine Room. We're based in West Yorkshire. We are a brand agency, like you said. So yes, we are graphic designers, but we're also strategic brand consultants, for want of a better term. So we do help businesses to understand who they are, understand where they are in the market, what makes them different, and how to leverage that difference. Work with many different kinds of sector businesses on things like brand positioning. We help them to understand who they are as a business from a values point of view and develop their personality. We get involved in all kinds of product naming, visual identity, messaging, and obviously that inevitably rolls out into campaigns and how you engage with customers as well. And next slide, please, Holly. Thank you. Work with lots of different businesses, most of which you will never heard of. But many of them all leaders in their own markets and sectors, so we don't tend to specialise in one sector. So from healthcare to tech to bathrooms and to a particular company that are experts in growing vegetables, world leaders in growing vegetables, if anything existed like that. Next slide, please, Holly. So that's a bit about us. I wanted to start off just by explaining a bit about our process. So we see a distinct difference between the word branding and brand. And we see it as a continual cycle of this cycle of what you might call expectation and experience. So the expectation is how you set levels of expectation with your customers, how you present yourselves as a business, how you talk as a business, how you get your offer, and how you make your promises. But then obviously inevitably you've got to deliver on that, and that's where the experience bit comes in. And so we see it as a continual cycle of development and brand. So next slide, please, Holly. And this explains maybe a little bit more in how that works. So we're very interested in differentiation. What makes you different? And so when you're looking at starting to design your software, or even the visual interface of it, then I would still say this is the starting point. So what makes you different as a business? The who, the what, the where, the why, the how, the when, and then understanding how you manifest that it manifests itself through your products, through how you talk to customers, how you act as a business itself, so the people within the business, and then the levels of service that you deliver. All of those things can be designed, and all of those things stem from one thing, and that's what you tell people is your point of difference. And so as a business, we get very involved in understanding how businesses work, where they're going, and then trying to help them to understand what that difference is, and then with a roadmap and with a plan to develop a brand through these different elements. Next slide, please, Holly. And the starting point is always with what difference are you making in the world? And that doesn't necessarily have to be saving the world as a purpose, or it doesn't have to be about making money. It could be very small things. But evidence shows, we know that customers now tend to want to work with brands, want to align themselves with brands which reflect their own values and reflect how they see the world and reflect the difference that they want to make in the world. So being very explicit about that in how you communicate and how you set your brand up is becoming more and more important. And so starting, well, start there. Start with knowing who you are. So understand what your purpose is. Understand how you live that purpose through your principles and values, and then decide and understand what kind of personality you have as a business. And then think about how that personality is manifest through your brand communications, through how you talk to people, through the messaging and through the communications that you employ on a day-to-day basis. So we would always start here from a brand point of view. Next slide, please, Holly. And so I'm maybe just going to sort of lead you through very quickly, in a very top line, sort of top level, the journey we've gone through with Pan Intelligence. So I appreciate you've already seen some of the work. You haven't seen it all, and I'm not going to show it all today. Next slide, please, Holly. So where do we start? So we started with understanding what the business was and what it did and how it ticks and what it means to people externally and internally. Working online, so we use the virtual whiteboard called Mural, which some of you may or may not have heard, to capture all that information. We ran workshops online with the entire team to get their take on Pan Intelligence, what it means to them, where it's going. And we captured it all in a board, and it helps us to get a one-shot overview of the business and where we think we can start to make a difference and help Pan Intelligence to understand what that difference was, maybe. Next slide, please, Holly. And again, very at a top line note, so going back to this idea of purpose, principles, and personality, making data amazing, so or simplifying data or making data simple was a really strong message that came about. Obviously, you know that Pan Intelligence are passionate about data, passionate about how you slice data, use data, how you predict data, how you make data, use data to make things better in the world. You're all doing that in your software at the moment. And so we wanted to be quite explicit about that and make data amazing. Yeah, that sounds quite simple, but actually it's quite a powerful enabler for a business now in terms of how we decide to do things as a brand, you know, from a communications point of view, or how you might develop new products. And it almost acts as a tick box. You know, are we making data amazing by adding this functionality? So it really acts as a pivot to developing the brand and developing the business. And then you can align principles with that. And obviously these would change from on an individual business point of view, but being adventurous or being very clear about how you do things, or inspiring each other to do great stuff every day, or being supportive as a team, and being genuine. You know, maybe that harks back to the roots of the business as well. And then that informs the personality and became very, very clear through our work that this business is born out of developing. You speak developing language, you communicate as a developer, you are developers. So why hide that? And so this idea, which is just a concept really, but the idea is a developer's developer. And what does that mean? But it means being bold and ambitious and pushing the boundaries. It means being very smart with the solutions. We've got a sense of humour. Why would we hide that away? Let's use it. Let's put it front and centre. Being supportive and being grounded, being commercial. So we're not. Yes, we can dream, but actually there is a commercial element to that dreaming. So these are the core elements of the brand. This is the starting point. This is what drives the rest of the brand. This is what helps us to make sense of communications. Next slide, please, Ollie. I think we're going to canter through these relatively quickly now. So you've probably seen already, so this is the new identity of Pan Intelligence. A bit of a happy accident that we have there's a nice little sort of bar chart device in the middle of Pan Intelligence that we can use. And if you flip to the next slide, please, Holly. Again, you've seen what we're affectionately calling the PyCon. This is the new icon or logo mark for the business, and we are on with animating this at the moment. You've already seen in many guises. So about being playful and giving yourself that width and the flexibility to be able to use this in many scenarios and tell the stories around that. Next slide, please, Holly. Colour palettes, often the last thing, and obviously colour is extremely important when you're looking at dashboards. There is a particular protocol we have to stick to as well in terms of the universal language. So we can't just pick colours, but then again we have to be disciplined about, so what are the primary colours, what are the secondary, and what are the tertiary colours that we can employ. By defining the personality of the business, we can then define the colour palette. So it's not just a random selection of colours. There's a reason for this. Next slide, please, Holly. And then thinking about how you deploy them colours. So giving them percentages, giving them, so we will only use this in this particular percentage, we'll only use this in this particular scenario. We might not use this colour at all in the dashboard, but we might use it in communications. So again, we can think very strategically about how colour is applied across the brand. Next slide, please. And we can also have fun with language and graphics. And a lot of this personality is about being bold. It's about being witty. Yes, we've made a word up, but it encapsulates what the core purpose of the business is. And if you've seen the hoodies that some of the guys are wearing, then you'd see that's emblazoned on the back of the hoodies as well. But it just allows us to have a bit of fun. Next slide, please. And continuing that, it really is a BI ninja. And even I know that with my limited data knowledge, so I've embraced Pan-Intelligence's world and sort of really dove in at the deep end in terms of it. But you get a sense that there's a real passion and a desire to push, and so a ninja can pretty much do whatever they want to do. So we're going to reflect that in some of the language. Next slide, please, Holly. And then developing a visual style. So not necessarily a dashboard in itself, but a visual style that mimics how dashboards might work. And mimics how data changes and how you can manipulate data and you can change it and you can make it do different things. And I think we're going to call these analyticons. So these are going to change. They're going to evolve over time. So we've got a certain selection for the launch of the brand, but we're just going to use these in many different ways. And this starts to become the toolbox. Next slide, please, Holly. And the toolbox develops. So obviously, we've got an icon set, which is unique. So we developed a style. You can see the little dot there from the PyCon in there. So these are unique now to Pan-Intelligence. And again, something that lends itself to develop when you're developing your own dashboards and software. Thinking about what can you do that is unique to you. So over time, it becomes synonymous with your business, with your software, with your platform. Next slide, please, Paul. And that's it. I said it was going to be a really short overview. I don't want to steal Steve's thunder when we're going through what we've done on TriPy later. But I think essentially, I said I wasn't going to tell you how to design dashboards, but I think really what I'm saying is it starts at the very core of the business. So designing dashboards is not just the design department or the developers. It's not just their job, it's the job of everyone. It's the job of everyone to align the business and align it around a powerful proposition and making sure that when your customers experience that software, they can see the line, they can see and experience and understand what that line is and what that differentiator is. And I think that's the second to last slide. Well, I don't think there's one more after this. And there you go. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Darren. Much appreciated.
Thanks for doing the slides. Sorry about that. Obviously, last minute technical hiccups, obviously.
No problem. No problem. We've had a few today, so don't worry about it. Thank you. Much appreciated. Let me just double check if we've got any questions quickly. I think we're running a little bit behind. So we've been asked one that says, so you showed some characteristics earlier that is a good way of coming up with these sort of characteristics without sounding too cocky, in brackets. So how do you do that without sounding a little bit egotistical?
Well, I think you just reflect back what you hear. There was no ego at all when we were going, working with Pan-Intelligence in the early stages. We just reflect back what we hear. I think if we'd have been told, right, we want to be we want to have a cocky, brazen approach, we want to appear like this in the market, then that's what you would do. But there's a lot of that goes on, and I think there's a lot to be said about the humility and keeping it simple. So I think that's probably the answer to that question.
Fab, yeah, and you've just got to be honest, I suppose, as the business,
Absolutely.
whatever you want to present. Okay, so someone's just said they had some problems with internet during that presentation, and can we send the recording? Yes. So fingers and toes crossed that this works, but we should have a recording of the full day, so we'll be able to send you the recording afterwards. So thank you. Thanks again, Darren. So next up we have Ray from Eurobase, who I mentioned, who is one of our partners. So Ray's going to show us some before and afters. So he's going to show us actually what you can do with Pan Intelligence Dashboard and how much of a difference it can make. So Ray, I hope that you're on the line. I'm just going to make you the presenter, so that should have come through to you now, so you can share your webcam and unmute, hopefully.
Sure, let's just see.
I can see
well,
you,
I can
so that's
see me.
fab.
Hope you can.
Yeah, we can, thank you. I can see your screen as well now.
Right, okay, so if I then share this, you should get a view of what Pan Intelligence can look like.
Yes, I've got a dashboard up with some pastel, greens, pie charts, etc.
And I think pastel is the best way to describe it, because this is what we started with when it came to the Pan Intelligence dashboards that we've been working on now for some time. So as you introduced me, I'm Ray Johnston. I am the head of pre-sales for Eurobase, and just a little bit about what we do. We provide software to the world's biggest insurers and reinsurers across the world. So these are companies that would insure large corporations, the kind of people who would back up the energy producers, the banks, the large corporations across the world, and they have an enormous appetite for information about all the risks that they're taking and how they have insured those risks, and they want to see that in a way that is really compelling for them. The main reason for that is that they have a huge amount of this, and it can often be very difficult for them to be able to really isolate what is interesting to their staff. So we're talking about being able to spot the unusual transactions, and being able to understand where they're making and losing money, and what represents a good piece of business and what doesn't represent a good piece of business. And with the thousands of data points that they're looking at, they find it incredibly hard. So one of the things that we do as part of our software is we offer them an end-to-end solution from the very beginning of their business right the way through to how they go about recording all the risk that they've taken, paying all their claims, dealing with all of their accounting. We capture then a lot of that data within our system, and we want to be able to show them what that really means for them in a graphical way. So we have had a long-standing partnership with Pan Intelligence, and when I started to look at these dashboards, these are the kind of dashboards that we came up with ourselves. And that's down to the fact that we were looking at the data as we were capturing it inside the system. And just to echo something that your previous presenter was saying, absolutely, I'd say it's about thinking about what are you trying to express in these dashboards? What are you standing for in this? And then putting yourself in the feet of the customer who is actually trying to grasp all of the data. So what we've got on this is I would say our first attempt, and we started to experiment with some of the graphs that we had, and we took all of what Darren was just saying about colour theory and threw it out the window and went for a lovely muddy pastel colour scheme, and produced essentially a lot of tables, which might be the right circumstance for some dashboards, for some reports, but the problem is that it didn't really give anybody an impression that we were able to develop these any further. So what we were able to do by talking to Pan Intelligence and by doing a little bit of our own investigation was turn from exactly the same data. We were able to move from this screen to something more like this, and this took a number of iterations to get right, and it also took the involvement of many people in the organization, each bringing along their own particular view. So just as we were looking at the new Pan Intelligence color scheme, we looked at Eurobase's color scheme, which is, you might imagine, is blue, and we then used that to give us our base colors in this dashboard, and picked a couple of highlight colors and contrast colors that we could use then to be able to work with the blue without this just becoming a sea of different shades of blue. One thing I should mention is that where we have a particular meaning to a graph, as we do here for this loss ratio graph, we overrode that color scheme to give us something that was a little bit more specific, because in our market there's a very definite green danger and red bad idea for this. So we're able to override that color scheme and give it a bit more meaning here. We're also, I'd hope you'd also noticed from the difference between the two screens, able to use lots of different types of graphs and displays. And I know that Ken has very strong feelings on the fact that it should either be a bar chart or a pie chart, but there are really good reasons why our customers like these different types of views, because it gives them a feeling of how their business is developing. For example, the way that these area charts work here, because it smooths out the data points, gives our customers a real impression of the fact that this is their business developing year on year. And over here, the fact that we can break down what could be their complex business into lots of little subsections here, slowly going from the very biggest part of their business right down to the smallest, is a nice way of them being able to see what constitutes their overall yearly work. And we're able to use the colors that Pan Intelligence have provided us with to show them the difference between some of these year on year, and allow them to explore the ideas of being able to, click on individuals and have them appear nicely. And when I'm demonstrating our product to potential customers, this is the kind of exploration that they would like to do within the enormous amounts of information they have. Because while they'll be aware of the fact that they are a large company and they have all these kinds of relationships out there, what they maybe are not aware of is exactly, well, what makes up my year-on-year piece of business? Who's important to me as a broker? And we were able to reuse this particular screen to show the different brokers they might be involved with, and being able particularly to start looking at some of the functionality in the background that allowed people to join charts together and turn this into something that was a little bit more than just a standard report, to make it interactive and allow people to say, actually, I just want to look at this segment of my business, and actually I just want to look at how one of these companies affects that line of business. And actually, I want to be able to drill in again and see even more about, well, show me all of these, the detail here. And I won't go any further, but what we've actually managed to do is link this record in the dashboard back into our core system. So if you get to the point where using all of these graphs and using all of this understanding and explanation of the business, you can get down to the very lowest level of detail by clicking on any one of these rows, will actually take you back into our functional application, which then shows you all of the real detail about that particular record and what you can do about it. So we can have a nice split between the investigative part of our product, which our customers love and say put us ahead of the competition, and the activity part of our product, which can then support and promote this as well. So those are the kind of things that we have that we've done. And I must say, if we're talking about being a BI ninja, I don't think that the way that we've approached it is a very ninja way of doing it, but I will certainly tell you how we've applied the knowledge that the Pan Intelligence have made us capable of. So we've gone for speaking to people and learning and taking very small steps. So much more of a very limited approach to sort of trying a bit and then moving on and then trying a bit and then moving on a bit further to get to this point. We've explored the different colors. We've had lots of conversations about how they should be applied, how the dashboard should be laid out, what customers feel and like about the dashboard, and taking that feedback in, doing an awful lot of checking the maths behind it to make sure that in putting together new dashboards and charts, we haven't fundamentally changed or broken how people would be able to understand our work. And then finally, I'd say spoken to Pan Intelligence, particularly Steve-O and Ken and all of our account managers, all are particularly in terms of being able to ask for help and saying we don't understand. So thanks to Pan Intelligence, I got a very quick course on how to use the CSS styling for the dashboards, which is absolutely pivotal and looks scary when you first get to it, but with a bit of experimentation and a bit of trial and error, you can certainly start to see how you can affect the shape and style of the boxes you use, the fonts that you use, the size and the appearance of the numbers that appear in your charts. And that is, for us, was very much about trial and error. So we worked very hard on making this look and feel right as well. And then again, I must say, just finally, the other piece would be we were playing with it. We were seeing what the new functionality would provide us each time. And now when every new release is passed from Pan Intelligence through our technical team to me, I have a run through all of the release notes and see what new technologies and new capabilities we've got to make things even more useful for our customers, but what other things I can get to work and how I can get other things to join up and explain things to our customers. So definitely not a single solution, but more of an evolution over time. So that's a very, very brief and high level overview of what we've tried to build. We aren't finished. We have quite a lot of other areas that we want to start investigating and looking at the different parts of the data that our customers pay for. But this is how we've got as far as we have, and I happily answer any questions for anybody either now or by email afterwards about what we did and give any advice I can. So I think that's everything I have to say, Holly. If you want to take any
Thanks, Ray.
questions now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Let me just check the questions now. 2 seconds. So you've had a few people saying very nice dashboard, so that's great. So clearly looking good. How did you choose the colours?
Well, so if you go and ask your marketing department nicely, then they should be able to give you your colour palette for the company. And if you go and into part of the setup for your dashboard schemes, we have our standard here. You can set your colors within this, and if you choose the colors, you should get these hash codes back from your marketing department, and you can enter them directly into the user interface here, which gives you your absolutely marketing approved color scheme.
And that's so important, as we know.
they get very upset if you get the color wrong.
Absolutely. Someone's asked, have you looked at turning these into PDF reports?
We have. In fact, that's something I'm speaking to Orla, our fantastic account manager, about now. So we absolutely have plans to produce these into reports so that they can be delivered to customers. In fact, we currently use a different technology for that, but seeing what you guys have shown us earlier on today, there's definitely some advantages in being able to produce these kinds of very informative, very bright and interesting reports for our customers when they are used to having very dull Excel spreadsheets delivered to them. Yep,
agreed. Well, thank you again, Ray. That was really, really good, and it was lovely to see the before and after, which we weren't sure whether you do, and I think that just shows the difference. So thank you. That's great. Now I'm going to hand, if you have got any more questions for Ray, by the way, I'm just running short on time, we'll be able to ping them across. And if you wouldn't mind, Ray, just answering any that come in, hopefully there's not thousands, and I'm sure we can filter them through Steve-O and the team here. So thank you again, really, really appreciate that. So I'm just going to hand over to you, Steve. So I'm just going to make you the presenter.
Yep, sure.
And then you're free to leave and switch your webcam off if you like, Ray. So thank you again. Thanks, Steve.
No problem. So we can see me, and we can see my screen.
Yeah, perfect. You're all good to go.
Cool. So yeah, hi everybody. I'm Stephen Oren, implementation consultant at Pan Intelligence. Thanks for joining with us, sticking with us as well. Ray and Darren covered a lot, to be honest. So I'm just going to take you through the meat and potatoes of this. So what you see here is a dashboard some of you will be familiar with, maybe with TriPy environment. It normally has Sky News at the bottom left, but that got a little bit depressing, didn't it, really? So Alana mentioned that she had a Panda cam, so we thought we'd whip this one out and stick with that one on there as well, just to a little bit of. I've just been naming them as the day has been going on, watching everybody's presentations. This one's called Ken, this one's called JB, and there's that little Alex there as well. So yeah, so we'll get straight into it. What you see here is a dashboard in quite an old style sheet. And we're going to basically re-energize this using the engine room's designs for one of our brands, one of our themes. For those people that haven't used it before, the theming section in the config at the top right is here. And in here we can see all the different areas and stylable elements of the dashboard, including the chart codes that Ray showed you earlier as well. So we're going to go through all of this. As Ray alluded to, there is a lot of trial and error when you're doing this kind of thing. So I'm going to skip through lots of the trial and error and pull out a little bit of the Blue Peter. Here's one I made earlier, and we'll go with that. So the first thing we can look at in this theme section here, we've got different sections for the dashboards, the buttons, the chart panels, and so on. And they've all got little complex Devi element names here. We have tooltips. So like this can act as a global setting for this one, for example. The other way of doing it as well is by inspecting elements. So say if we want to color the top nav bar here, we can right click in Google Chrome, click inspect, and it'll bring up lots of complex looking stuff. It will also show us the class this belongs to and that we can use to style it, which is pystyle_top_nav. But yeah, so we'll get into it then basically. So let me look at my checklist. So what we'll do first is we'll just the global look of the dashboard. So we'll head into that first. Here, so we're using one called pre-party here, and hopefully we'll end up with a party at the end of it. So what we're going to do, change the background color first. Obviously white's a classic, but people like some other things. And what I'm also going to do as well, I'm going to do some copy and pasting because it's much easier and will save us a lot of time. So what I'm doing here is changing the background color, the font color, and then I'm defining the font family for the overall dashboard here. So we'll get into the fonts a little bit later on. Here acts as a global setting, so it applies the font for everything. So if we click the style button here, we'll see that the font has changed. The save button, sorry, not the style button. And we can see that the font has changed for this. There are some bits later on where you have to define the font again, but that's just because it doesn't inherit the font from the overall one. So head through. So already we can see a quick change in fonts. So we can see if we refresh these charts here, the cards at the top right will have inherited the font that we've asked it to. Things like the nav bar at the top. So what I'll do, we'll head down as well. Top nav bar, one of the first things somebody sees when they log into the dashboard. We're going to grab our defined colors by the engine room. Made an awesome design for us. We'll save that, and straight away we've got that one in there. Nice one, easy. Again, as Ray mentioned, your marketing department will have these kind of codes for you. Everybody's got branding guidelines and design language and things like that. We'll just duplicate that one for this panel heading as well. This is for any messages that pop up and that kind of thing. And the progress indicator. This is a cool thing. So if you notice when you save at the dashboard, there's a little blue flash that appears just under the top nav bar. We're going to change that one as well. We're going to do that by adding a fancy linear background image, so we can see it does our hot pink to a lighter pink as well. Yeah, as mentioned earlier, the engine room, they've supplied us with loads of great palettes, including like lighter colors as well, so like for accents of the hot pink. So now when we save or go back, you can see the flash of pink across the top. Don't know if you catch that one actually, but we'll see. So already, so we've got a different background color. We've got our top nav bar here and the font for the overall page. What we'll head into now, we'll just keep going, we'll just go along here. It doesn't take very long. All we're going to do here, we're just going to change what the primary button looks like for this example. So this is your main doing stuff button. In this case, it's the apply button for the filter menu, for example. Again, we're going to use our little Pan Intelligence hot pink. I'm going to find it on my list. I'm going to stick that in here. So what we're doing, we're applying the background color, another hex code that's been defined by the design. The white text to make sure it stands out, and we're also part of the design language of this kind of theme as well, is that like the big doing stuff is quite bold and clear. So we're going to quickly save that. And again, all of this CSS stuff, there's so many resources on the internet, like it's a quick Google and you're there basically. But yeah, so I'll just quickly show you the effect of that one. There we go, see. And if we ignore this wonderful palette of pastel colors, we can see that we've kind of got, we're already starting to move into this brand and the look of it, right? Just by the big main buttons. We can see here that if we hover over this button, we've still got a little bit of a navy blue that we need to get rid of as well. So all we're going to do is add a slightly lighter pink for that one. We don't need to state the rest of it, because if it's not stated here, it will inherit from that one as well. And a little bit, this is the trial and error and the learning how the CSS and how it works within us works as well. But that will just determine now when we hover over this button, a lighter pink appears like that. Cool. What's next on the list? So chart panel. So the next one is a chart panel that we'll do. So this is all of these set cells that when we split out and we're designing our dashboards, all these cells are a chart panel each. So we're defining what this chart panel looks like. You'll have seen on some of the previous examples that look awesome. People have margins in there, some have rounded corners on their chart panels, that kind of thing. The idea of this theme that we're doing now is that it stands out a little bit. It makes you look at it. So we're going to do this. So I'll copy it all in and I'll describe what we're doing. get rid of some speech marks. So what we're doing, we're confirming that the background color is white. We're putting a margin of 5 pixels on it, defining the font family again, because I don't think the chart panel inherits it. And we're changing the font color, so it's a bit of a softer look as well. Defining the font weight, and we're removing the box shadow as well. Again, the design of this theme is kind of like a nice flat. There's no like 3D elements to it, so we'll be removing all of them. And so we can see these chart panels now, they've got a little bit of space between them, makes them easier to pick out and gives you like defined areas to look at. And we've removed the box shadow as well. And obviously now we can see that background color we defined earlier is coming in through here. One of the great things to do, and you'll see people doing it if I'm working on your dashboard, you'll see me doing it, is when you can't really work out what something does. If you just go color it bright red and see what changes. So we can see that that one is styling this background here. Let's just change that one back. And it's a really good way of when you're navigating through here, because obviously some of them are self-explanatory, like the input label, so that when you're typing into a space or something like that. But when you've got different ones that all start piling up and you're like, what does this one do? I've used this one before, right? So you just do a little bit of background red or color red and it'll make it stand out and you'll be like, ah, yes, of course. So where did we get up to? Nattering away, getting lost. So yeah, so we've done the chart panel and we've stated the margin around it. What we really want to quickly do now is when I can find it on my list, we're just going to remove the box shadow from the buttons as well. And this will give them a flat appearance on the chart panel here, make them stand out a little bit less, like we still want to see them and use them, but we don't want them to be one of the most eye-catching things on there. And then the final part for this theme is we have a header. So we have a really eye-catching header as well. To find panel header. And again, if you're hovering over tooltips, this little eye down here says the chart cell header, that's what we want to do. What we're going to do with this header, we're going to give it a little grey colour and a darker grey text, defining the font weight again. And we just need to do another one, which is for the chart title. Because again, it doesn't inherit some stuff, and we're adding a little bit of a padding as well at the top of the chart title. So we save that, head back. Okay, so you can see we started adding some of these headers at the top of here, like this. And we can see we've got a little bit of a design issue with the card chart type, but we'll get into that as well. The card has its own styling elements here. So we have some for overall chart panels, but if you want the cards to default to a certain different look, which I'll show you in a second, because we want to remove that kind of header for the chart. We just want nice clean borders and stuff like that. We'll take you into that one as well. What we'll do now is, again, so this is in the chart settings, so this is inside the chart panel. What are we styling in the chart? Basically, it's lots of text, the x-axis and the y-axis, values and titles and things like that. So I'm probably going to go quiet for a second while I do this, because I don't want to accidentally remove something that I don't want to do. So all I'm doing is determining the font family defined by our design and the color as well. For that one and that one, we'll do this one up to legend value. Okay, so if we press save on that, we head back, you can see now, we'll refresh these charts again. Now we can see we have the font has changed as well, like the legend item and the chart title. And all we need to do is just define the font for the rest of these little ones as well. Here we have like the traffic light chart type and the light bulb, the speedometer, that kind of thing. We just have separate things for this. It's handy for some fonts look better in a bigger size, but you don't want the rest of the charts to be the bigger size, really. Do it for tooltip text, so you can define how that looks. And so we're getting there now. So we have the main theme, we have what we want the chart panels to look like and the font, we're starting to get there. Obviously, the chart colours are going to be the most standout thing, and we'll get to them. Just a couple more things to do. Let's tidy up these cards here. So one of the main things about the cards and what people like is obviously they're very configurable and you can do lots with them. What people like is that they can just be, it's like a post-it note stuck on the page, right? So we want to get rid of this stuff at the top. We'll do that. Heading to the card section here, we will add this cheeky little display none for the chart title. Right, as we can see in the little preview here, it's gone to not displaying it. So if we head back now, the chart title is hidden away now. We still have the opportunity to get into the chart menu, but that chart panel and the header of the different color in this case has disappeared. And obviously that makes for a much cleaner look. We're also going to add, so this is, again, a lot of this kind of thing is subjective as well. One of the worst things you can probably do is design by committee. So the thing I'm about to do, some people like, some people don't, for example. But I'll show you what it is. I'll show you what it is. So, put them in the wrong place. So what these CSS functions do. So what we're doing here is we're making the opacity of the chart menu buttons on the card chart only. So this is for the card section. We're making them basically transparent. We're saying there's a small transition, like a little fade in when they're hovered over. Because when we hover over here, we say the opacity is 0 to 1. So if I head back now here, we can see that it's completely removed the chart buttons there. It makes a really nice clean card post-it note look. If we hover over them, we can still do the full screen if we want to. We can still get into the chart menu as well. Okay, and the chart colors we saw earlier, this bit's going to be a little bit mundane while I navigate and change all of these, but it shouldn't take too long. I'll try to talk you through it as we go as well. So again, hex codes, marketing department's your best friend for these kind of things. Let's start changing some of these up. And there's multiple different ways of coloring your charts. This is like, whoops, change the name, not the actual thing. This is, like we said earlier, this is going to be like a bright look at me dashboard. So just nicking these hex codes from the engine room's designs. Putting the kettle on or whatever we're doing in the meantime. Whistling while you work. Okay. So if we save that, head back to dashboard, refresh these charts because they don't. This is the only thing they don't pick up. The chart colors don't pick up straight away. The CSS does, but the chart colors you have to refresh. And all of a sudden we've got a slightly more exciting looking dashboard. There's still a couple of extra little things we can do here. Let me look at the time. We can squeeze them in. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is, yeah, we're going to add a little bit of something to this. So here we can see we've got one flat color for this, and we can drill down, end up into a data table and that kind of thing. What is a cool thing to do is you can either, we're going to define some colors basically for this. So let's stick a couple of these on. Obviously people do this in different orders, I do it like this. So all we're doing, we're giving each dimension a different color. So let's have a look, we'll see, should we refresh the page a second? And what we're going to do, so we're going to, so for each bar on the chart, we're just going to give it its own defined color basically. And obviously I can make it pop a little bit as well. There we go. So I had to refresh the browser then because the palette hadn't refreshed. We'll give a couple of these. A couple of them. Like this. And you can do this further down as well. So while we're doing this at the top level, what's sometimes cool to do and what we've done in with partners in previous dashboards is to apply this color at this level, but also apply the color at the next level drill down as well. So when they drill down on the pink one, the one below it is pink as well. If we have time, we'll do that later. So we'll refresh that, and all of a sudden we've got the dashboard that's popping. Don't forget, we can also apply colors at the object level as well. So we could say we want the male one to be black and the female one to be white.
Steve,
also,
I was going to see, just because we're running close to 3 now, I was going to jump in with a couple of specific questions that have been raised. if that's
Yeah, sure.
okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the first one is, I can see the theme here. Is it possible for different users to have different themes?
Yep, sure. I'll show you that now really quickly. So how we do it in Pan Intelligence is we have a user, let's say Stephen, for example, sounds like a great guy. Down to the bottom left, we can define a theme for this user. So when this user logs in, we can see any of the themes that we have here. So obviously this doesn't apply to the login screen because I haven't logged in yet. So you have they log in and then all of a sudden they can see in this manner. What we'll do really quickly is we'll give Stephen access to that. And we'll log out and log back in. Because I'm aware we're running out of time, but I think we all know the important job here is to really quickly make the login screen look awesome as well. That'll take 2 minutes, if I can nick 2 minutes every time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to do next, actually, Steve.
Yeah, cool. So we've logged in as so for the style sheet, this one's called PyBerry. Again, it's it's a similar take of the other one. It's a bit more chilled out. Obviously, we've defined the colors on this one here, so it's inheriting those colors from that. But yeah, really quickly, we'll do the login screen. Very, very quickly. Didn't think I'd run out of time, not gonna lie. Right, so let's head straight to it.
Time flies when you're having fun, Steve-O, and we know when you're in branding, you're having fun.
I've so many shortcuts as well, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so let's have a look at login screen then. So again, it's just another section on here. You saw the login screen just then. What we're going to do, we're going to change some of the CSS for it to make it look a bit more on brand, and we're also going to add a background image as well. You might have saw the cheeky little loading icon as well for the charts then in the other theme. We're going to add that to this one too. So let's do this. So for the login panel header, icon, I'm going to hide those ones up. Change a little bit of CSS on the footer. So again, a lot of this stuff has just been not trial and error, but trying different things, what looks right, what doesn't look right, and then me having to find them on here, login screen panel. Yep. Login screen button, much like the primary button we had earlier. We're going to style this button as well. Just find it. Input field as well. So let's see what that looks like so far. We quickly log out. There we go. So it's cleaned up a little bit. It's got the login box a little bit more on brand. And now all it needs is a couple of images. So what we'll do, we'll reference these ones here. So I'll really quickly show you this. So in the dashboard files, in the equivalent, obviously some of you guys are AWS, in the equivalent of Tomcat Web Apps and the themes, we have our theme here in the little image folder. We've got some images here that we're just going to copy in really quickly to that theme. We're going to do that in the configuration section here. Okay, so login screen background. Call it that one. Got our little tagline as the logo. We'll also add a quick dashboard logo in there as well. And cheeky loading icon as well. So now if we log out, we've done all that right and not forgotten anything. And there we go. You can see we've got a little bit of a nice login screen with the background. This looks completely different to what we just did. And that's that. Any other questions, Ken? Well, I just tinker in the background.
Yeah, there's a couple more in here. So we theme a dashboard and we try to make it look exclusively like our product. So they're asking about the loading icon, which is pretty good because it's loading quite quickly, but the PyCon that's loading with the charts, is it possible to get that?
Yep, sure. So the loading icon just resides in the same place as all the background images and the icons and the login icon at the top, the logo at the top. Let's just switch that one on so it's always showing really quickly so we can see it. Press that, head back, refresh. There we go, so we can see the little Pan Intelligence new LLI logo at the top left there as well. And we can see here, I'm doing everything I can to make it load slowly. We can just see that loading icon there. So yeah, that one resides in the same place. So in here, we've got a little SVG that Tiago threw together. It's fantastic. And in the same place, we define the dashboard logo and the PDF logos. We also have loading icon here. And we're just linking again. It's just the file name that's in that same IMG location. Next question.
Okay, the final one I've got here as well. It's just about fonts, and I think we were just in the screen there as well. But how do you change the fonts that the dashboard's using?
Yep, sure. So this new feature for the fonts is a custom font URL. So we're using the Google API. This looks complicated. It's really not. If you let me jump out of full screen, let's go into Google Fonts, for example. So in here, let's just pick a random font. Let's try find a really silly one, or one that looks different. This will do. So what we're going to do is going to select the style, and here we can see for the embedding here, we just have a href link here. So if we add this one in to this theme, and all you do, put that link in there, and then it shows you, they tell you everything, the font family. Like our one we used earlier was called Red Hat Text and Red Hat Display. This one's called Major Mono Display. If we copy that and we add that into our and here like this, reload. I mistyped something.
I think you were missing the H of the HTTPS on the embed link.
Oh, cheeky.
See, that's how responsive support is at Pan Intelligence, everybody.
Look at that.
In the
Pan
middle of
Intelligence
the support, we
And
get
there we go.
support help.
Just like that, we managed to ruin our theme. So cheers for that, Ben. Nice one, thank you. Yeah, there we go. So, and it's just simple as that, really. So there are other URL places you can go to. Obviously, Google Fonts, a lot of them are open source and things like that, free to use. But if we just, obviously, as soon as you remove that link, even though we're referencing it here, it doesn't let us have it. Let me just put that back to what it was. Like so.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Steve-O. That answers all the questions that you've had so far. Obviously, if you want to know more about branding, styling, please let us answer those questions for you. We have even got involved, as Ray was saying, to help people with their branding and styling as well. So it's something that we can really help you with. So if you want more help with that, then please reach out to your account manager in the coming days.